The Senate will come to order. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Buck. Here. Senator Cannizzaro. Senator Daley. Senator Daley. Here. Senator Doñate. Here. Senator Dondero-Loop. Here. Senator Flores. Present. Senator Goycochea. Here. Senator Hammond. Here. Senator Hansen. Here. Senator Harris. Here. Senator Krasner. Here. Senator Lang. Here. Senator Neal. Here. Senator Wynn. Here. Senator Orenshaw. Here. Senator Pizzina. Present. Senator Scheibel. Here. Senator Seifers-Gansert. Senator Spearman. Here. Senator Stone. Here. Senator Titus. Here.
Thank you, Senator Lang. It's not on. Okay, then somebody has to.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Mr. President. Please mark Senator Cannizzaro absent, excused.
Thank you. Let the record reflect there are 20 senators present. Please rise for the prayer by Pastor Randy Roser from the Bridge Church, Carson City, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, good afternoon. Let's pray. Well, Lord, I just thank you, Lord, for the servants' hearts of every senator, our lieutenant governor. Lord, bring a spirit of unity and peace to our leaders today as they press through, Lord, through tough agendas, tough ideas, plans for the future. Lord, I ask that you help every senator stay strong. Be confident. Let them persevere through difficult agendas, Lord, today and every day they're here. May they serve passionately as they represent our state, the great people of it, knowing all eyes are on their character and the choices they make affect every citizen. Lord, they've taken a huge responsibility. So, Lord, we just lift them to you. Keep them strong. Help them walk through. Keep their eyes, Lord, on what they came to represent. So, Lord, we ask for wisdom to this entire Senate that can build a strong, spiritually healthy state. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll now go to order of business 16, remarks from the floor, introduction of guests. Senator Krasner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is Special Olympics Day at the Nevada Legislature. With me, I have two guests, Amy Brinkerhoff and Baron Lauterbaugh, but I also have a proclamation for all of the participants in Special Olympics. So I'd like to read a little bit of this to all of you. Whereas Special Olympics Nevada strives to create a better world by fostering the acceptance and inclusion of all people and enriching the lives of children and adults with intellectual disabilities through educating students to promote unity, encouraging leadership skills, inspiring athletes to train and compete in sports, and enhancing athlete health. And whereas the organization offers free year-round training and competition programs for over 2,600 athletes who participate in more than 14 competitions in 7 sports annually. And the Special Olympics Nevada is congratulated for providing continuing opportunities for these athletes to develop physical fitness, demonstrate courage, experience joy, and participate in sharing their friendship, gifts, and skills with their families, other Special Olympics athletes, and the community. And be it further proclaimed, that the commitment by Special Olympics Nevada to provide year-round sports, training, and athletic competition in a variety of Olympic-type sports for children and adults with intellectual disabilities is recognized on this day, Special Olympics Day of the Nevada Legislature, dated 18th day of April, 2023. Please join me in welcoming and celebrating Special Olympics Day at the Nevada Legislature. Thank you.
Senator Severs-Gansert.
Oh, we got it. All right. Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple of introductions. First, if the Stremmel family can stand up, please. All right. So I have Ainsley Stremmel. She's a second grader at Roy Gaum. In her free time, she enjoys reading, drawing, and playing softball. She's been really patient here today with us, and they're constituents of mine. And then I have Crosby Stremmel. He's right over here. Crosby is a kindergartner at Roy Gaum Elementary. He likes building Legos, solving puzzles, and playing with his sister. I also have their mom, Megan Stremmel. Megan is a graduate of the University of Nevada. She formerly worked for John Ensign as a deputy press secretary and also at the Museum of Art. She now works in the golf industry and enjoys cooking, reading, and cycling. Would everyone please help me make them feel welcome? I also have representatives of NAOP. If you would stand, we might have NAOP folks around the floor. Anybody that's from NAOP? All right, thank you. NAOP, the Commercial Real Estate Development Association, is the leading organization for developers, owners, and related professionals in office, industrial, retail, and mixed-use real estate. With more than 663 members statewide and over 288 affiliated businesses in the commercial development, construction, and property management fields, their members represent the largest non-gaming economic driver in the state. NAOP's members are focused on advancing Nevada's local economies through advocacy and awareness of issues related to the long-term health of our economy and improved quality of life in the state of Nevada. Would everyone please help me make them feel welcome?
Senator Hammond.
Nope, I think I'm good. Thank you, Mr. President. I have two guests with me here today. A minute ago, we just had Lisa Brady introduced as part of the NAOP organization. She's a constituent of mine, and one of the things we've been talking about are the beloved Golden Knights, who will be playing tonight at 6:30, I believe. She's been involved in hockey for a long time now because it's the first major sport to arrive on the scene. And so we've been talking about that a little bit today, but glad to have her here as a constituent. It's always good to have some folks here on the floor with us, flying up from, braving not only the weather, but also the flights from Southwest Airlines. And if that was meant to be a dig against Southwest, it was. And so, but they're here, and they made it this morning, so grateful to have her here with me. And then to my immediate left is Colleen Chapman. She is the Director of Resource Development with the Boys and Girls Club of Western Nevada. One of the things that she's proud about doing right now is expanding their footprint in this community and doing a lot of good for our youth here. So if you can help me make my guests feel welcome, I'd appreciate it.
Senator Hansen.
There it goes. Very good. Thank you, Mr. President. I have two special guests with me, but I'd like to invite everybody in the audience who is here with the Special Olympics Nevada group to stand up, please. I have two with me right now that are extra special because one is Kathy Edwards. I know her as Aunt Doll. She is actually my mother's youngest sister. And with her is my first cousin, Felicia. And Felicia is a proud participant in Special Olympics, and she is wearing right now 2 gold medals, one for bowling and one for golf. So they are here actually today working very hard on SB 219, which is Senator Krasner's bill trying to get an appropriation for Special Olympics Nevada. So we want to give a little shout out for that today. And also, please, would you make my relatives and all the other great people who are helping do so much good for these special people in our state, please give them a warm round of applause.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know joining us in the gallery is the Nevada Immigrant Coalition. If you could rise, along with one of my favorite professors from Boyd, Professor Lazos, and one of my favorite students, Mr. Rudy Gonzalez. I think they're still here, but I just wanted to acknowledge them. They are doing amazing work in advocacy. A lot of the legislation that I am currently working on and that I've worked in the past is directly as a consequence to the work that they do and the inspiration that they bring. So I appreciate you all. If you could just give them a round of applause.
Okay, seeing no more remarks, we'll go ahead and take a quick recess to allow our guests to exit the floor to my left here. The Senate is back in order. We're on order of business 3, reading and approval of the journal. By previous order of the Senate, the reading of the journal is dispensed with, and the President and Secretary are authorized to make the necessary corrections and additions. Order of business 4, reports of committees.
Mr. President, your Committee on Education, to which was referred Senate Bill number 47, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Roberta Lang, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 11, 85, and 107, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Also, your Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, to which was referred Senate Bill number 27, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Dallas Harris, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Health and Human Services, to which was referred Senate Bill number 191, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Fabian Dugnate, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Natural Resources, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 112, 113, 258, 269, 364, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Julie Pizzina, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Revenue and Economic Development, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 50 and 126, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Dina Neal, Chair. End of reports.
Thank you. Order of business 6, messages from the Assembly.
Assembly Chamber, Carson City, April 17th, 2023. To the Honorable the Senate, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day passed Assembly Bill number 361 and Assembly Joint Resolutions numbers 5 and 6. Also, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day passed as amended, Assembly Bills numbers 104, 210, and 235. Also, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day adopted Assembly Concurrent Resolutions numbers 3 and 7, signed Carol Ayala Sala, Assistant Chief Clerk of the Assembly. End of messages.
Thank you. Order of business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bills numbers 25, 26, and 90 be taken from their positions on general file and placed on general file for the next legislative day.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bills numbers 23 and 39 be taken from their position on general file and placed on the Secretary's desk for purposes of a possible amendment.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Assembly Joint Resolution 5, introduced by Assemblyman C.H. Miller and Monroe Moreno, proposes to amend the Nevada Constitution to revise provisions relating to lotteries and the sale of lottery tickets. End of resolution.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we refer Assembly Joint Resolution 5 to the Committee on Operations and Elections.
Senator Lang has referred AJR 5 to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. If there are no objections, so ordered.
Assembly Joint Resolution 6, introduced by Assemblyman Watts, etc., and Senators Harris, etc., proposes to amend the Nevada Constitution to adopt the National Popular Vote Compact. End of resolution.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we refer AJR 6 to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
Senator Lang has referred AJR 6 to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. If there are no objections, so ordered.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 3, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, directs the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Growth and Infrastructure to conduct a study of the laws administered by the Nevada Transportation Authority and the Taxicab Authority. End of resolution.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we refer ACR 3 to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
Senator Lang has referred ACR 3 to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. If there are no objections, so ordered.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 7, introduced by Assemblywoman Anderson and Considine, directs the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Revenue to conduct a study regarding wealth taxes during the 2023-2024 interim. End of resolution.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we refer ACR 7 to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
Senator Lang has referred ACR 7 to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. If there are no objections, So ordered.
That concludes order business 9.
Thank you. Order business 10, introduction, first reading, and reference.
Assembly Bill 104 by Assemblywoman Dickman, etc., revises provisions governing the submission of legislative measures for city charters. Refer to legislative operations and elections. Assembly Bill 210 by Assemblywoman Duran, etc., revises provisions governing public works. Refer to government affairs. Assembly Bill 235 by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno revises provisions governing public works projects. Refer to government affairs. Assembly Bill 361 by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, etc., revises provisions relating to state financial administration. Refer to government affairs. End of Assembly Bills.
Thank you. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we refer Assembly Bills 104, 210, 235, and 361 to the committees as listed on the desk in front of you.
Thank you. If there are no objections, so ordered.
That concludes order business 10.
All right, we are now on order of business 13, general file.
Senate Bill 2, introduced by Government Affairs, revises provisions relating to emergency management. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 7, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Daly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 2 relates to emergency management. Senate Bill 2 clarifies that under certain circumstances, the Chief of the Division of Emergency Management may activate the State Disaster Identification Coordination Committee or a subcommittee in preparation of an imminent emergency, disaster, public health emergency, or other health event. The bill also makes certain reporting by health care providers mandatory during such emergencies or events. Finally, Senate Bill 2 requires the committee to share the information from the reports submitted by health care providers with a county or city upon request for the purposes of reunification or identification services. The bill takes effect upon passage and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Is there anyone who wishes to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. SB 2 has received 21 yeas, 0 noes. The bill, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 3, introduced by Government Affairs, revises the membership of the Nevada Commission on Homeland Security. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 2, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Krasner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 3 requires the governor to appoint the director of the Department of Public Safety or his or her designee to the Nevada Commission on Homeland Security.
Thank you. Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Secretary will close the roll. SB 3 has received 21 yeas, 0 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 5, introduced by Government Affairs, authorizes the Division of Emergency Management in the Office of the Military to use money in the Emergency Assistance Account for certain additional purposes. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 2, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 5 relates to emergency assistance account. Senate Bill 5 authorizes the Division of Emergency Management in the Office of the Military to use the money in the emergency assistance account to pay the actual expenses incurred by the division for the purpose of an emergency management, regardless of whether the governor or the legislature proclaims that such an emergency exists. This bill will be effective July 1st, 2023.
Thank you. Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, SB 5 has received 21 yeas, 0 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 19, introduced by Government Affairs, revises provisions relating to local governments. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 20, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Daley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 19 relates to certain unincorporated towns and related items. Senate Bill 19 authorizes a Board of County Commissioners to provide by ordinance for the formation of an unincorporated town that includes territory that was conveyed or transferred to the county or authorized to be conveyed or transferred to the county pursuant to certain federal law or is located not more than 1 mile from such territory. The bill also makes various related provisions, including public hearings, a town advisory board, corporate limits of a city, and annexation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. SB 19 has received 21 yeas, 0 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 34, introduced by Judiciary, revises provisions relating to legal representation in certain actions or proceedings. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 5, end of subsection 2, end of bill.
Senator, let's see. Okay, so Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 34 authorizes the Attorney General or other authorized representative of a political subdivision of the state to represent certain officers or employees who are summoned or subpoenaed to appear if the person is not a named defendant and submits a written request for representation, or if the Attorney General or other authorized representative determines that representation is in the best interest of the state or a political subdivision of the state. Language requiring that the determination to employ special counsel must be made prior to trial is removed from statute. The bill also provides for the appointment of special counsel if the Attorney General or other authorized representative determines that it is impracticable, uneconomical, or could constitute a conflict of interest to serve as a legal advisor in such matters. Similar provisions are set forth regarding a person in the executive branch employing counsel other than the Attorney General. And finally, the bill clarifies how such counsel must be compensated according to existing statute.
Are there any further remarks from the floor? Senator Sievers-Ganzert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to Senate Bill 34. The Attorney General's office is one of the largest, if not the largest, law firm in the state, and they have many attorneys working for them to be able to represent their various clients. So I think that's one issue. And the other issue is compensation would be the reserve for statutory contingency account, so our contingency fund, or federal grants or other funds related to the state treasury, but not general fund. So the other issue is that there's no fiscal note on this. They're avoiding the fiscal note by not using general fund, and I'm concerned about accountability and what the expenses will be to hire outside attorney when, once again, we have so many attorneys who work for the state through the Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further remarks on the floor? Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. To clarify, the purpose of allowing the Office of the Attorney General to employ outside counsel is to resolve conflicts. There may arise situations where one part of our government is suing another part of our government or involved in some kind of legal conflict that would prevent a member of the Attorney General's office from ethically representing a person who is employed by the state of Nevada, and therefore it is necessary for the Attorney General to seek outside special counsel. This is something that they currently do, that is currently budgeted for, and Senate Bill 34 codifies that practice to ensure that everybody in the state of Nevada is being represented by an ethical attorney.
Senator Severs-Gansert.
Thank you, Mr. President, for a second time. When I read the bill, I do see words, language around a conflict of interest, but I also see impracticable, uneconomical, and other terms which provide broader language, so it's not just for a conflict. And my concern again is that we could hire many outside counsel attorneys and not really have the accountability required around those expenses. Thank you.
Are there any further remarks on the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Secretary will close the roll. SB 34 has 13 yeas, 8 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 42, introduced by Health and Human Services, revises provisions relating to the funding of medical assistance to indigent persons. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 2, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 42 authorizes the Board of County Commissioners in a county whose population is 100,000 or more to use county funds for medical assistance to indigent persons if authorized under any supplemental payment program by federal centers for Medicare and Medicaid services to 1, provide enhanced rate of reimbursement to any public hospital in the county for hospital care that is provided to Medicaid patients, or 2, make supplemental payments to such hospitals for the provision of such hospital care through increased federal fiscal participation. The effective date of this bill is July 1, 2023.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. SB 42 has 21 yeas, 0 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 55, introduced by Judiciary, revises various provisions relating to courts. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 13 and Section 13, end of bill.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, President. Senate Bill 55 revises various provisions related to our courts. Among other items, Senate Bill 55 provides that a court must grant a credit of not less than the state minimum wage to a person who performs court-ordered community service, and revises provisions under which a criminal case can be transferred from one justice court to another. The bill also changes the title of deputy clerk to clerk of the court and revises provisions governing such a clerk's appointment, duties, and liabilities.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? The Secretary will close the roll. SB 55 has 19 yeas, 2 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 62, introduced by Judiciary, revises provisions relating to the Commission on Judicial Discipline. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 3 and Section 3, end of bill.
Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 62 clarifies that the Commission on Judicial Discipline has jurisdiction with respect to attorneys who are judges beginning when the judge is sworn in, and the State Bar of Nevada retains jurisdiction over matters that occurred prior to the judge assuming office. The bill is effective October 1, 2023.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. SB 62 has received 21 yeas, 0 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 81, introduced by Senator Daley, revises provisions governing regional planning. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 3, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Daley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 81 requires through 2026 representatives from Carson City, Douglas, Lyons, Story, and Washoe counties and the incorporated cities within each of these counties to meet to discuss and identify positive and negative issues relating to growth in the region. The county managers of such counties are further required to prepare and approve an annual report that makes recommendations intended to resolve any negative impacts on the orderly management of growth in the region. The measure also requires the majority leader of the Senate and the Speaker of the Assembly to each appoint 2 members from their respective houses, one from the majority party and one from the minority party, to meet jointly with certain representatives to identify and discuss positive and negative issues relating to growth in the region. The legislative members and each city manager who participates in these joint meetings serve in an ex officio capacity.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to SB 81. You know, there's an old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Clearly, this has been going on, requiring these 4 counties meet, and I'm all about letting them meet and plan and discuss their differences. But what we're doing here, we're mandating you shall meet. And if you look at the record on the bill, most of those counties were in opposition to this bill. So we can't mandate that people come together and plan for their future and discuss their differences, and then we're going to add 4 legislators to the mix. I rise in opposition. I ask you to do the same.
Any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Secretary will close the roll. SB 81 has received 13 yeas, 8 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 87, introduced by Legislative Operations and Elections, revises provisions relating to state employment. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 2 and to Section 2. End of bill.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, President. Senate Bill 87 authorizes a position in the classified service of the Executive Department of the Nevada State Government to be filled without competition by a person who meets the minimum qualifications for the position they're applying for and has successfully completed at least 900 hours of service either in an AmeriCorps, Youth Conservation Corps, or Job Corps program in the state within the 2 years prior to that person applying for that position. The hours of service must be directly related to the position that they are hoping to gain employment for. The bill will be effective October 1 of this year. Thank you.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. SB 87 has received 21 yeas, 0 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 97, introduced by Senator Sievers-Gansert, enacts provisions governing the interstate practice of physical therapy. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 13, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Sievers-Gansert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 97 enacts the Physical Therapy Licensure Compact. The Interstate Compact allows a person who is licensed as a physical therapist or physical therapist assistant in a state that is a member of the compact to provide services in other states that are members of the compact. Before providing services, the compact requires a physical therapist or physical therapist assistant to meet certain requirements. The bill clarifies that a physical therapist or physical therapist assistant who is authorized to practice in the state pursuant to the compact may engage in the same activities as a physical therapist or physical therapist assistant who is licensed in this state. This bill is effective on July 1st, 2023. Thank you.
Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. SB 97 has 21 yeas, 0 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 109, introduced by Senator Wynn, revises provisions governing anatomical gifts. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 8, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 109 authorizes a coroner or medical examiner to release and authorize the removal of a body or body part for transplantation in the event of brain death if the body or the part of the subject is a valid anatomical gift. The coroner or the medical examiner has received a request from the procurement organization, and there is no evidence of refusal by the decedent or objection by the authorized person to the body or part becoming an anatomical gift. A coroner and medical examiner is immune from civil or criminal liability for any act or omission performed in accordance with the provisions of the bill. Further, the bill authorizes a procurement organization to petition a district court to appoint a person to make that anatomical gift of the decedent's body or a part of their body if no other person is authorized to make such anatomical gift.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Titus.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in strong opposition against SB 109, although indeed it is well intended and indeed we do need to have more donors. I think this is an unfortunately bad precedent that we're setting to allow this happen. In particular, the people that have no evidence of who they are or evidence of their choices, what they would want to have happen with their body at the time of death, that have no ID, that you can't find the next of kin. They tend to be the homeless. They tend to be our foreign folks who are foreign born, maybe here legally or not, but having no ID. And reaching out to that next of kin to find out what their wishes are may take days and days, if ever. So unfortunately, those that are lying in our hospitals on life supports or even in the morgue that may be used for some sort of tissue donation, we will not be able to find what their true wishes are. And to assume that they will opt in and what body parts they will donate is, I think, a wrong assumption. And although, again, we need more donors, I think more emphasis needs to be on that supply of people willingly donating than to, unfortunately, focus on the homeless and those with no IDs that will be impacted by this. So I urge my colleagues to vote no. Thank you.
Are there any further remarks on the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. SB 109 has 13 yeas, 8 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 115, introduced by Senator Flores, revises provisions relating to the mitigation of certain projects. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 3, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 115 authorizes the Board of County Commissioners to establish, use, and operate an in lieu fee program for compensatory mitigation in accordance with guidelines set forth in certain federal regulations. The board may enter into a cooperative agreement with a public agency or nonprofit organization for the establishment, use, or operation of the in lieu fee program.
Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. SB 115 has received 21 yeas, 0 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 117, introduced by Health and Human Services, revises provisions relating to community health workers. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 117 authorizes the Director of Department of Health and Human Services to include in the state plan for Medicaid coverage for the services of community health workers who are supervised by specified types of healthcare providers other than physicians, physician assistants, or advanced practice registered nurses.
Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, SB 117 has received 21 yeas, 0 nays. The bill has received a constitutional majority and is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can we move to order of business number 9?
Okay, we're on order of business number 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move to take the remaining bills on general file from this legislative day and place them on general file for the next legislative day.
Okay, you've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Okay, we are now on order of business 16, remarks from the floor, introduction to guests. Seeing none, we will take a brief recess. Oh, all right. Thanks. We're good? The Senate is back in order. We are on the second agenda, Order of Business 4, Reports of Committees.
Mr. President, your Committee on Commerce and Labor, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 194, 259, 275, 276, 386, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Pat Spearman, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Government Affairs, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 83, 94, 247, 262, 271, 272, 318, 323, 363, and 371, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation do pass. Signed, Senator Edgar Flores, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Government Affairs, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 21, 24, 184, 225, 301, 305, and 320, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Edgar Flores, Chair. End of reports.
Thank you. Order of Business 8, Waivers and Exemptions.
Notice of exemption, April 18th, 2023. The Fiscal Analysis Division, pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6, has determined the eligibility for exemption of Senate Bills numbers 47, 94, 112, 191, 225, 271, 275, 376, 301, and 364. Signed, Wayne Thorley, Fiscal Analysis Division. End of notice.
Order of Business 9, Motions, Resolutions, and Notices.
Senator Neal has approved the addition of Senators Hansen and Spearman as co-sponsors on SB 450. That concludes Order of Business 9.
Order of Business 12, second reading.
Senate Bill 11, introduced by Growth and Infrastructure, requires the Department of Public Safety to adopt regulations authorizing a public agency to use unmanned aerial vehicles for certain purposes. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 326 by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment ensures that certain... I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
Thank you. You've all, any objections? So ordered. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment requires that the department adopt regulations to ensure that only certain companies are able to sell these unmanned aerial vehicles, as well as prohibits public agencies from using the images under certain circumstances.
Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Are there any further amendments?
There are none.
SB 11 is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 27, introduced by Health and Human Services, revises provisions relating to excavations in areas containing subsurface installations. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 216, proposed by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt Amendment 216 to Senate Bill 27.
You've heard the motion. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment revises the definition of emergency for which immediate action is required to include the use of non-mechanical equipment according to industry standards to determine the severity or the spread of an underground leak, or under certain circumstances, for the operator of a subsurface installation to use non-mechanical equipment to locate the subsurface installation within the area of a proposed excavation when the excavation is imminent.
Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. SB 27 is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 47, introduced by Education, revises provisions relating to teachers. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 222, proposed by the Senate Committee on Education.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate adopt Amendment 222 to the Senate Bill 47.
You've heard the motion. Senator Lang.
Amendment 222 to the Senate Bill 47 does the following. It removes provisions related to Public Education Employee Working Conditions Task Force and establishes the fee set by the Commission on the professional standards associated with educator licensure may not exceed $50.
Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. SB 47, as amended, is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 50, introduced by Revenue and Economic Development, revises provisions governing the sales tax holiday for certain members of the Nevada National Guard and certain relatives of such members. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 60, proposed by the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment number 60.
You've heard the motion. Senator Neal.
Amendment number 60 to Senate Bill 50 eliminates the requirement for an eligible member of the Nevada National Guard, his or her relative, to provide a letter of exemption to a retailer upon the purchase of personal tangible property for which the member or his or her relative will claim a tax exemption from the Department of Taxation on Nevada Day weekend.
Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 50, as amended, is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 85, introduced by Senator Daley, revises provisions relating to retention payments under certain highway contracts. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 194, proposed by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt amendment number 194 to Senate Bill 85.
You've heard the motion. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 194 to Senate Bill 85 revises retention payments in Section 1 so that the remaining 5% of the contract price, but no more than $50,000 be retained until the entire contract is completed satisfactorily and accepted by the Director of the Department of Transportation.
Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. SB 85, as amended, is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 107, introduced by Senator Daley, establishes provisions relating to contractors performing work on a highway. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 193, proposed by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt amendment number 193 to Senate Bill 107.
You've heard the motion. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 193 to Senate Bill 107 provides that authorized emergency vehicles, including vehicles operated in the performance of the duty of a coroner or medical examiner. It removes language referring to purchasing a vehicle or NDOT charging a fee for the permit, clarifies that lights on a vehicle can only be on and flashing when construction crews are present, and clarifies that the provision of this bill only apply if the contractor first requested the presence of an authorized emergency vehicle operated by a peace officer employed by the NHP at the area where the work on the highway is being performed, and the officer or authorized emergency vehicle could not be made available.
Are there any further remarks on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 107 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 112, introduced by Senators Goycochea and Titus, revises provisions governing groundwater basin assessments. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 217, proposed by the Senate Committee on Natural Resources.
Senator Pazina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Pazina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Amendment 217 to Senate Bill 112.
You heard the motion. Senator Pazina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 217 to Senate Bill 112 clarifies that the money levied or appropriated and credited to the Water District account must not be used to pay employees subject to the provisions of Chapter 284 of NRS. It removes the minimum assessment charge and establishes a maximum charge and authorizes the state engineer to increase the charge beyond the maximum with the approval of the Board of County Commissioners. And it provides that the state engineer shall provide, upon written request from a Board of County Commissioners up to once per year, a report on the expenditures and activities from the Water District account for the basin well account of a groundwater basin.
Are there any further remarks on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 112 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 113, introduced by Senators Goycochea, Titus, Buck, Hanson, Stone, and Krasner, revises provisions relating to groundwater management plans. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 218, proposed by the Senate Committee on Natural Resources.
Senator Pazina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Pazina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Amendment 218 to Senate Bill 113.
You've heard the motion. Senator Pazina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 218 requires the state engineer to affirm or modify the perennial yield of a basin. At the same time, he or she designates the basin as a critical management area. It authorizes the state engineer to modify the perennial yield based on the best available science, provides that a petition for the approval of a groundwater management plan must be signed by the holders of permits or certificates to appropriate water who represent a majority of the total groundwater permitted or certificated for use in the basin, provides that the holder of a permit or certificate with a priority before the date on which the withdrawals of groundwater in the basin were equal to the perennial yield of the basin who does not sign the petition may not be required to comply with an approved groundwater management plan, and finally, provides that if the state engineer modifies the perennial yield of the basin, the holders of permits or certificates with dates of priority before or after the date on which withdrawals of groundwater in the basin were equal to the previous perennial yield must be required to either comply or allowed to opt out of complying with an approved groundwater management plan, depending on whether to perennial yield is increased or decreased.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 113 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 126, introduced by Senator Neal, revises provisions relating to the NV GROW program. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 150, proposed by the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Neal.
Amendment number 150 to Senate Bill 126 makes the following changes. Removes the requirement for the Nevada Small Business Development Center in Clark County to participate in tracking and mentoring of businesses. Adds the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce as a stakeholder group. Reduces the appropriation to the College of Southern Nevada to support the program, adds an appropriation of $100,000 for University of Nevada Cooperative Extension in Clark County to provide counseling, training, and geographic systems and data services, and adds an appropriation of $30,000 for stakeholder groups to employ a contract for marketing.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 126 is ordered, as amended, is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 191, introduced by Senator Seavers Ganser, makes certain changes relating to applied behavior analysis. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 428, proposed by the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 428 to Senate Bill 191 raises the fee of issuance to an initial license as a behavior analyst or an assistant behavior analyst from $25 to $450.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 191 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 258, introduced by Senator Orenshaw, revises provisions relating to water. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 342, proposed by the Senate Committee on Natural Resources.
Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Amendment 342 to Senate Bill 258.
You've heard the motion. Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 342 to Senate Bill 258 deletes Sections 1 through 3 and Sections 5 through 9 of the original bill. It provides that the state engineer may grant a temporary change of the place of diversion, manner of use, or place of use of water already appropriated for a period of more than 1 year, but not to exceed 3 years if the temporary change is for a renewable energy generation project.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 258 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 269, introduced by Senator Orenshaw, revises provisions related to animal cruelty. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 341, proposed by the Senate Committee on Natural Resources.
Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Amendment 341 to Senate Bill 269.
You've heard the motion. Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 341 to Senate Bill 269 prohibits a person from restraining a dog outdoors during any time in which a heat advisory, excessive heat warning, wind chill warning, or winter storm warning has been issued for the area by the National Weather Service, adds an exemption to existing prohibitions on the restraint of a dog under direct custody or control of a person if the person is engaged in a temporary activity with the dog for not more than 1 hour, provided that a heat advisory, excessive heat warning, wind chill warning, or winter storm warning has not been issued, and eliminates existing exemptions on the restraint of a dog where a dog is either being used lawfully to hunt during hunting season or receiving training to hunt, or temporarily being cared for as a part of a rescue operation or in any other manner in conjunction with a bona fide nonprofit organization formed for animal welfare purposes.
Thank you. Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 269 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 364, introduced by Senators Krasner, et cetera, makes various changes relating to cultural remains. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 391, proposed by the Senate Committee on Natural Resources.
Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Amendment 391 to Senate Bill 364.
You've heard the motion. Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 391 to Senate Bill 364 clarifies that if a law enforcement agency goes to a location where human remains are found that are reasonably believed to be a native Indian, the law enforcement agency, as part of an investigation, is required to either communicate with a representative of an Indian tribe located within the county where the remains are found, or notify the Office of Historic Preservation of the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 364 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file. Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you, Mr. President. May we go to order of business number 9?
Yes, let's go to order of business 9.
Thank you very much. I would like to move Senate bills numbers 47, 112, 126, 191, and 364 be taken from their positions on general file and referred to the Committee on Finance upon return from reprint. Thank you.
If there are no objections, so ordered.
That concludes order of business 9 and the business of the desk for the second agenda.
Very good. Order of business 16, remarks on the floor, introduction of guests. Seeing none, Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that the Senate stand in adjournment until the hour of 11 a.m. on Wednesday, April 19th, 2023.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.